In America, many people trust hospitals with their lives. But sometimes, a single mistake, a wrong judgment, or ignoring a patient can change everything. This story is about a young black woman who went to a hospital in pain, but the doctor brushed her off. What her test results later showed shocked everyone inside the hospital walls. The story will unfold in 9 generations with twists, tension, and real human struggles leading to a final, chilling revelation. Before we continue, let us know in the comments where you are watching from today and what time you are currently watching this video. If you enjoy stories like this, make sure to like, share, and subscribe for more. It was late afternoon in Atlanta, Georgia, when Maya Johnson walked into the emergency room of St. Clair's Hospital. She was 29 years old, dressed in simple jeans and a gray sweatshirt, her face pale and her hands clutching her stomach. Every step she took seemed heavy, and the pain shooting through her body was strong enough to bend her forward. She stopped by the check-in desk where a tired receptionist looked up briefly, her eyes gliding over Maya with a flat expression. "Name?" the receptionist asked, tapping lazily at her keyboard. "Maya Johnson," she whispered, her voice tight with pain. "I've been hurting for 3 days now. I can't keep food down, and the pain just keeps getting worse." The receptionist nodded but didn't look concerned. "Take a seat. A nurse will call you." Maya's eyes darted to the waiting room filled with patients, some on their phones, some groaning softly. She lowered herself carefully into a chair, holding her stomach and trying to breathe. 2 hours passed before a nurse finally called her name. Maya followed slowly, sweat forming on her forehead. The nurse led her to a small room where she was told to wait for the doctor. When Dr. Parker walked in, his white coat swinging behind him, his face was calm but distant. He was in his early 50s, with graying hair and sharp glasses. He glanced at Maya for only a second before pulling up her chart. "So, stomach pain?" he asked, not looking at her. "Yes, sir," Maya said, her voice shaking. "It's been really bad. I can't eat. I feel like something is tearing inside me. Please, something's not right." Dr. Parker let out a soft sigh. "You're young. It's probably indigestion, maybe stress. A lot of people think pain is more serious than it really is, especially when nothing major shows up." Maya blinked, shocked. "But this isn't normal. I know my body, and this pain isn't small. It hurts so bad I can't sleep." He finally looked at her, but only for a second before writing a note. "We'll run a quick urine test. Maybe check for gastritis. In the meantime, I'll prescribe something mild for pain. You'll be fine." Maya wanted to protest, but the sharp tone in his voice made her swallow her words. She felt small, unheard, as though her pain was invisible. The nurse came in, collected her samples, and left again. Alone in the room, Maya pressed her hands against her stomach and tried to fight back tears. She thought of her mother, who always told her never to let anyone dismiss her. She thought of her job at the daycare, how she had been too weak to show up for the past 2 days. And she thought of her little brother Jamal, who was waiting at home and didn't know how sick she really felt. An hour passed before the nurse returned with results. She handed the folder to Dr. Parker, who glanced through it quickly. His face didn't change much, but his jaw tightened for a moment. "Your results aren't clear," he said. "Could be contamination. We'll need to run another test tomorrow." "Tomorrow?" Maya repeated, her voice rising. "But I'm in pain now. I can't wait until tomorrow. Please, doctor, check again. Do something. I know something is wrong with me." Dr. Parker shook his head slightly. "Listen, Maya, people sometimes exaggerate their symptoms. I've seen this before. If you really feel it's serious, you can come back tomorrow when we have more staff. Tonight, we're stretched thin. Go home, rest, and don't worry so much." Maya's heart pounded with frustration. His words stung, not only because he didn't believe her, but because of how quickly he dismissed her, as if her suffering wasn't worth attention. She stood slowly, her body trembling, and walked out of the room with tears running down her cheeks. As she reached the hospital exit, she nearly collapsed by the doors. A security guard noticed and rushed to help. "Miss, are you okay?" he asked, trying to hold her up. Maya could only whisper, "It hurts too much." The guard called for a nurse, but by the time they got her onto a wheelchair, Maya was nearly unconscious. She was rushed back inside, this time to an observation room. The same Dr. Parker was paged, and his irritation was clear when he walked in. "She was just discharged," he muttered under his breath. But when the monitors were hooked up to Maya, the numbers made the nurses exchange uneasy looks. Her blood pressure was dropping, her heart rate unstable. Something was clearly wrong. "Doctor," one nurse said quickly, "this doesn't look like indigestion." Dr. Parker frowned and ordered a blood test. He seemed almost annoyed, as if Maya's body had betrayed his earlier judgment. He left the room while the tests were drawn, pacing in the hallway. Maya lay on the hospital bed, fighting the waves of pain crashing through her. Her eyes fluttered shut as she whispered, "Please, God, let them find what's wrong with me." When the lab technician returned, the envelope in her hands looked heavy with importance. She passed it to Dr. Parker, who opened it without much concern at first. But as his eyes moved down the page, the color drained from his face. His lips parted slightly, and for the first time his calm mask cracked. He stared at the results for a long, silent moment, and then, without looking up, he whispered, This can't be right." The nurse beside him asked, "Doctor, what did it show?" Dr. Parker didn't answer. He just kept reading, his eyes scanning the numbers over and over, as though hoping they would change. The hallway felt heavy, like the air itself had frozen. Something in those results was far from ordinary, and it was enough to make the entire hospital shift uneasily. Dr. Parker stood frozen in the hallway, staring at Maya's test results as if the paper in his hands was burning him. Nurses exchanged glances, sensing something serious, though none of them dared to speak. Inside the observation room, Maya lay curled on her side, her breathing shallow. Her eyes were closed, but her body twitched now and then as sharp waves of pain rolled through her. A young nurse named Angela stayed by her bedside, checking her pulse and blood pressure every few minutes. Angela finally turned toward the doctor, frustration clear in her tone. "Dr. Parker, this patient is in real distress. If we don't act fast, we could lose her." Dr. Parker cleared his throat, trying to hide the tension in his voice. "Run the test again. There could be an error in the lab. These numbers don't make sense." Angela raised an eyebrow. "Doctor, her vitals don't lie. Whatever those results say, her body is proving them right. We need to escalate this." But Parker waved her off, his pride tightening around him like armor. "We'll keep her stable until we confirm. Order fluids, give her mild pain control, and keep monitoring." Angela clenched her jaw, but nodded. She didn't like it, but as a nurse, she had to follow protocol. Meanwhile, in the waiting area, Maya's younger brother Jamal burst through the doors, his backpack slung over one shoulder. At only 19, he carried the weight of worry far beyond his years. He had gotten a call from Maya before she went unconscious, and he'd rushed across town. "Where's my sister?" "Maya Johnson," he shouted, his voice echoing through the hall. The receptionist gestured toward the back. "Room 12. Calm down, young man." Jamal didn't calm down. He sprinted through the corridor, his sneakers squeaking against the tiles, until he found Angela standing outside Maya's room. "That's my sister," he cried, trying to push past. Angela stopped him gently. "She's inside, but you need to take a breath. She's in a lot of pain, and we're working on stabilizing her." Jamal's eyes widened as he peered through the window and saw Maya hooked to machines, her body trembling weakly. He turned to Angela, his voice breaking. "She told me the doctors weren't listening to her. Is that true?" She said they didn't believe her. Angela hesitated, glancing at Dr. Parker, who was standing just a few feet away. His stiff posture told her not to speak, but Angela's conscience burned inside her. She leaned close to Jamal and whispered, "Your sister is very sick. I don't think she should have been dismissed earlier. Stay by her side. She needs you." Jamal's jaw clenched, anger sparking in his chest. He walked into the room and took Maya's hand, whispering into her ear, "I'm here, sis. I'm not going anywhere." Maya's eyelids fluttered weakly, a tear sliding down her cheek. Back in the hallway, Parker walked briskly toward the attending physician's office, holding the test results like a guilty secret. He knocked once, then entered. Inside sat Dr. Susan Mitchell, the head of internal medicine. She was in her 40s, sharp-eyed, and known for never tolerating mistakes. She looked up from her desk when Parker walked in. "Paul," she said, eyeing him carefully. "What's the matter? You look like you've seen a ghost." Parker shut the door behind him, lowering his voice. "It's a patient. Young woman, abdominal pain. Johnson, Maya. The labs came back." "Unusual." Dr. Mitchell took the paper from his hands and began to read. Her brows furrowed, then her expression shifted to one of shock. "Are you kidding me? You didn't act on this immediately?" Parker stiffened. "I wasn't sure. I thought maybe it was contamination. It doesn't fit the presentation." Mitchell's voice sharpened. "Doesn't fit? Paul, her numbers are critical. This is life-threatening. If we don't move her to intensive care and run further imaging right now, she may not survive the night." A cold wave of realization swept through Parker. His earlier arrogance cracked as the truth pressed down on him. He had ignored her complaints, dismissed her pain, and now the evidence screamed louder than any patient could. Back in Maya's room, Angela was already preparing her for transfer. Jamal watched anxiously as more staff hurried in, wheeling equipment and adjusting 4 lines. The sudden rush of urgency made him nervous. "What's happening?" he demanded. "What did they find?" Angela hesitated again, but finally said softly, "Something very serious. They'll explain soon. Just don't leave her side." As they prepared Maya for a CT scan, she suddenly groaned loudly, her body arching in pain. Alarms blared as her heart rate spiked, then dipped dangerously low. Nurses shouted orders, rushing around the bed. Jamal was pulled aside as he yelled her name, his voice cracking with fear. "Stay with us, Maya," Angela shouted, pressing a button for emergency support. Dr. Mitchell stormed into the room with Parker trailing behind, his face pale. She barked orders with precision. Get her to CT immediately. Prepare for a surgical consult. This patient is critical. Within minutes, they were wheeling Maya down the hallway on a stretcher. Jamal ran alongside until a nurse stopped him at the double doors leading to imaging. He slammed his fist against the wall, tears spilling. Why didn't they listen to her from the start? He whispered bitterly. Inside the CT room, the machines hummed as they slid Maya into the scanner. Dr. Mitchell watched the monitor carefully, her arms crossed tightly. Parker stood in the corner, silent, sweat forming on his forehead. The images began to load on the screen, black and white shadows revealing the truth inside Maya's body. Mitchell's face grew grim, her lips pressing into a thin line. She pointed at the screen. There, that's the problem. No wonder she's in this much pain. Parker followed her gaze and felt his stomach drop. The image revealed something that should never have been ignored. Something dangerous. Something urgent. Mitchell turned to him sharply. If this had been caught hours ago, we could have gotten ahead of it. Now we're fighting against clock. Parker swallowed hard, his voice barely above a whisper. What are we dealing with? Mitchell didn't answer immediately. She just stared at the screen, her eyes dark with concern. Finally, she said, This is worse than we thought. Prepare the surgical team. We can't waste another second. The tension in the hospital thickened like fog. Nurses rushed, surgeons were paged, and Jamal waited helplessly outside the restricted doors, his heart hammering in his chest. Somewhere deep inside those hospital walls, the truth about Maya's suffering was finally being uncovered, piece by piece. But with every second ticking away, the question wasn't just what they had found. It was whether Maya would live long enough for anyone else to know. The cold fluorescent lights of the surgical wing buzzed faintly overhead as the stretcher, carrying Maya, sped through the double doors. Nurses pushed with urgency, their shoes squeaking against the polished floor. Dr. Susan Mitchell walked alongside, barking precise instructions into a headset, while Dr. Parker trailed behind, his heart thudding with guilt. In the waiting area, Jamal paced back and forth. He had never felt so helpless in his life. He thought about how Maya always looked out for him, helping him with school, making sure he stayed out of trouble, even skipping nights out just to cook dinner for them both. And now, she was lying unconscious on a stretcher, fighting for her life. Angela, the nurse who had stayed by Maya's side earlier, came to check on him. She placed a hand on his shoulder. She's in good hands now. Dr. Mitchell is one of the best. They're doing everything they can. Jamal looked up, his eyes red. But this wouldn't have gotten as bad if they'd listened earlier. Why didn't they believe her? Angela sighed softly, her expression heavy. Sometimes doctors let their assumptions cloud their judgment. But right now, what matters is saving her. Meanwhile, in the operating preparation room, Maya was being transferred onto a surgical bed. Her face was pale, her breathing uneven. Dr. Mitchell examined the CT scans again on a nearby monitor, her voice sharp. Get blood units ready. She's lost more than we thought. Page Dr. Lopez from General Surgery. One of the residents nearby asked carefully, Dr. Mitchell, what exactly are we looking at? Mitchell's jaw tightened. Internal bleeding. The source is still unclear, but if we don't open her up now, we'll lose her. Dr. Parker stood silently in the corner, guilt gnawing at him. His earlier arrogance echoed in his ears. The way he had told Maya was probably indigestion. The way he brushed off her pleas. He tried to speak, but Mitchell cut him off with a glare. You've done enough, Paul. Step aside if you can't help. The surgical team prepped quickly, slipping on gowns and gloves, setting up trays of shining instruments under the bright overhead lamps. Every sound in the room, the snapping of gloves, the metallic clink of tools, added to the tension. Maya groaned weakly as the anesthesiologist leaned over her. Stay with us, Maya, he murmured as the mask went over her face. Within moments, her breathing steadied into the rhythm of sedation. Dr. Mitchell took her position at the head of the surgical table. Scalpel, she said firmly. The operation began. Back outside, Jamal sat in a hard plastic chair, his head buried in his hands. Time dragged on slowly, every minute stretching like an hour. Families around him whispered about their own loved ones, but he heard nothing except the pounding of his own heart. Angela returned with a bottle of water, setting it beside him. Drink. You'll make yourself sick if you don't. He shook his head. Not until I know she's okay. His voice cracked. She's all I have. Angela sat beside him. For a moment, the professional mask on her face slipped, and her voice grew soft. You know, when Maya first came in earlier, she tried to stay strong. Even through the pain, she kept saying she didn't want to be a burden. That told me a lot about who she is. Jamal swallowed hard, fighting tears. That's Maya, always putting others first, even when she's hurting. Hours passed before the doors to the surgical wing finally swung open. Dr. Parker stepped out first, still in scrubs, his face drenched with sweat. Jamal jumped to his feet. How is she? He demanded. Parker opened his mouth, but hesitation froze him. He glanced back as Dr. Mitchell walked out, pulling off her gloves. Her expression was unreadable. "She's stable for now," Mitchell said finally, "but we're not out of danger. There was significant internal damage. We managed to control the bleeding, but her body is weak. The next 48 hours are critical." Jamal exhaled shakily, tears filling his eyes. "Can I see her?" Mitchell nodded. "One at a time. Keep it short." Inside the recovery room, Maya lay hooked to machines, and Ford dripping into her arm, a soft beat marking her heartbeat. Jamal pulled a chair close and took her hand gently. "Hey, sis," he whispered. "You're still here. You're strong. I need you to keep fighting, okay?" Her eyelids fluttered faintly, and though she didn't wake fully, her lips trembled as if trying to form words. Outside, Dr. Mitchell confronted Parker in the hallway. Her tone was sharp but low. "You ignored her pain. You dismissed her because you thought you knew better. Do you realize you nearly cost that woman her life?" Parker's face flushed. He wanted to defend himself, but no excuse came. I misjudged." "Misjudged?" Mitchell snapped. "No, Paul. You neglected. This isn't just about one patient. It's about trust. People come here because they believe we'll listen. She begged for help, and you turned her away." Parker's voice was barely a whisper. "What happens now?" Mitchell crossed her arms. "Now, we focus on saving her life. But don't think this conversation ends here." Back in Maya's room, Jamal sat quietly, refusing to leave her side. Nurses came in and out, checking vitals, adjusting her lines. Angela gave him an encouraging nod as she wrote notes on a chart. But then, something changed. The monitors beside Maya beeped louder, the numbers dipping dangerously again. Jamal jumped up, panic flashing across his face. "Help! Somebody help her!" He shouted. Angela rushed in, followed by 2 other nurses. "Blood pressure's crashing," one of them yelled. Dr. Mitchell sprinted into the room, eyes narrowing as she scanned the monitors. "We're not done fighting," she said firmly. "Get the crash cart in here now." The room exploded into motion. Nurses pushed equipment forward, wires and tubes tangled, hands moving fast. Jamal was pulled out again, his chest heaving as he watched through the glass. His sister's body jerked slightly as the medical team worked furiously to stabilize her. In the middle of the chaos, Dr. Parker stood at the doorway, frozen. His heart pounded as the reality sank deeper. The woman he had ignored, the patient whose pain he had dismissed, was slipping away under his watch. And this time, there would be no hiding from the truth. The steady beeping of the monitors in Maya's room turned wild, echoing down the hallway like an alarm bell. Nurses rushed in from every corner, their voices overlapping as they called out numbers and shouted instructions. "Blood pressure's at 60/30, one nurse yelled. "Heart rate unstable, dropping fast," another added. Dr. Mitchell took control immediately, her voice firm but calm. "Charge the defibrillator. Push 1 milligram of epinephrine. Move, people." Angela wheeled the crash cart to the bedside, yanking open drawers and passing out supplies. Jamal stood just beyond the glass window, his fists pressed against it, his breath fogging up the surface. His heart pounded so loudly it drowned out everything else. Inside the room, Maya's body looked fragile under bright fluorescent lights. Her chest rose and fell unevenly, wires stuck to her skin, the machine screaming with each dip in her vitals. Dr. Parker stood in the corner, frozen in guilt. His throat tightened with every sound, every command, every reminder that if he had acted sooner, none of this chaos would be happening. He remembered her voice clearly, pleading, trembling, insisting she knew something was wrong, and how easily he had brushed her off. Clear. Dr. Mitchell's voice cut through his thoughts. A jolt of electricity surged through Maya's body, lifting her slightly off the bed before she fell back. The monitor flatlined for a chilling second before sputtering weakly. "Again!" Mitchell barked. "Clear." The second shock made the monitor beep irregularly, then finally stabilized into a weak but steady rhythm. Relief spread across the team like a wave, but Mitchell's eyes remained sharp. "She's back, but she's still unstable. We're moving her to intensive care. Let's go." The team rushed her out of the room, machines trailing behind. Jamal ran alongside, desperate to stay near her, but a nurse held him back at the ICU doors. "You can't go in right now," the nurse said firmly. Jamal's voice cracked. "That's my sister. I can't just stand here." Angela stepped forward, her expression softer. "She's in critical care now, Jamal. The doctors will do everything possible. I promise." He sank into a chair outside the ICU, his hands shaking as he buried his face in them. The weight of helplessness pressed heavily on his chest. Inside the ICU, the room filled with a constant hum of ventilators and steady blinking lights. Maya was hooked to more machines than ever, her fragile frame dwarfed by the equipment keeping her alive. Dr. Mitchell adjusted her 4 drips, then turned to the team. "She has significant internal injuries. The scan showed damage in her abdomen that's been bleeding longer than we realized. She's lucky she made it through the first operation, but she's not out of danger." one of the residents asked carefully. Do we know the cause yet? Mitchell's jaw tightened. We'll need more tests, but I have a strong suspicion. And if I'm right, this could change everything about how we treat her. She glanced briefly at Dr. Parker, whose face was pale, eyes glued to the floor. He felt every pair of eyes on him, every silent judgment hanging heavy in the air. Meanwhile, in the waiting area, Jamal couldn't sit still. He jumped up and began pacing again. His mind replayed the last 3 days. Maya calling him at night, saying the pain was worse, him urging her to go to the hospital, and now, watching her fight for her life. He clenched his fists, muttering to himself. She told them, and they didn't listen. Angela walked over quietly, holding 2 cups of coffee. She handed him one. You need strength too. Drink it. He took it with trembling hands. Thanks, but I don't care about me. I just need her to wake up. Angela sat beside him. She's strong. Patients like her. They surprise us. Don't lose hope. Back in the ICU, Dr. Mitchell ordered another round of imaging. We need confirmation before we take her back in, prepare the ultrasound, and get labs drawn again. When the results came back, Mitchell studied them carefully. Her eyes narrowed, her finger tracing along the page. The numbers confirmed what she feared. She's been bleeding internally for days, Mitchell said grimly. If this had been caught at the start, the damage would have been far less severe. She wouldn't be lying here fighting for her life. Her words were loud enough for the team to hear, and Parker's chest burned with shame. He wanted to disappear, but Mitchell's glare kept him rooted. You'll stay, she said coldly. You'll watch what it means when a doctor ignores a patient's pain. Maybe then you'll understand. Hours passed. The ICU was tense, filled with the rhythm of machines and hushed voices. Jamal sat outside, staring at the double doors, refusing to leave even for a second. Angela checked on him periodically, offering quiet reassurances. At midnight, the doors finally opened, and Dr. Mitchell walked out. Jamal shot up immediately. Is she okay? Please, tell me she's okay. Mitchell placed a hand on his shoulder, her face serious but calm. She made it through another crisis. We've stabilized her for now, but the next day is crucial. She'll need close monitoring. Jamal exhaled shakily, gripping his backpack straps. Can I see her? Mitchell nodded, just for a few minutes. Inside the ICU, the room glowed softly from the monitor lights. Maya lay motionless, her skin pale, her chest rising and falling with the help of the ventilator. Jamal walked to her side and took her hand gently. Hey, sis, he whispered. You're still fighting. I'm proud of you. I'm not going anywhere, okay? I'll be right here. A tear slipped down his cheek as he held her hand tighter. Behind the glass, Parker watched silently. His guilt was overwhelming, but deep inside, another emotion began to grow. Fear. Fear of what would happen when the full truth of Maya's case came out. Fear of how the hospital, the community, maybe even the media, would react when they learned what had almost been lost because he hadn't listened. And most of all, fear of what those test results would ultimately reveal once Mitchell finished piecing them together. The quiet hum of the machines filled the ICU, but beneath it was a heavy tension, like everyone was waiting for a storm that hadn't yet broken. The ICU room hummed with machines, each beep and were echoing like a countdown. Maya's frail body lay motionless under thin white sheets, her hands still clutched gently in Jamal's. He hadn't moved in hours. His eyes were bloodshot, his back ached from the stiff chair, but he refused to let go. A nurse entered quietly to check the monitors. Jamal looked up at her desperately. She hasn't opened her eyes once. Is she even hearing me? The nurse softened her voice. We don't know, but don't stop talking to her. Sometimes patients hear more than we think. Jamal nodded and leaned closer to his sister. Maya, it's me. I need you to wake up, okay? You always said I was a strong one, but that's not true. You're the strong one, so fight for me. His words trembled, but his grip never loosened. Outside the glass, Dr. Mitchell and her team reviewed Maya's latest scans. Mitchell's finger pointed sharply at the screen. Look here, massive internal bleeding that's been worsening for days. But there's more. The source isn't random. There's a rupture. The residents leaned closer, their faces tightening. One whispered, How could this have been missed? Mitchell didn't blink. Because someone assumed her pain was exaggerated. Because someone didn't take her seriously. Her words cut through the silence, landing like stones on Dr. Parker's chest. He shifted uneasily, unable to meet her eyes. His mind replayed Maya's trembling voice in the exam room. Please, something's not right. And his own careless reply. It's probably indigestion. Now those words haunted him. Mitchell snapped him back with a cold tone. Paul, if she doesn't make it, this won't just be on her chart. It'll be on you. Parker swallowed hard, the weight of her words pressing down like iron. Meanwhile, Jamal stepped out into the hallway, pacing like a caged animal. His body was restless, but his mind was filled with memories. He remembered their childhood, Maya standing up for him when bullies cornered him in middle school, Maya staying up late to help him with math homework, Maya laughing as she braided his hair when he was too little to sit still. She had always been his protector, and now he felt powerless to protect her. Angela approached carefully, holding a clipboard. "Jamal," she said softly, "do you want to know what's happening right now? The doctors think they found what's wrong. They're preparing for another possible surgery." Jamal's head snapped up. Another surgery? She already went through one. How much more can her body take? Angela sighed. She's weak, but if they don't fix the source of the bleeding, she won't have a chance. It's risky, but it's her best shot. Jamal rubbed his face with both hands, tore between fear and hope. She has to survive. She just has to. Inside the ICU, Mitchell prepared her team. Schedule the OR for tonight. We can't wait any longer. Get Dr. Lopez and Dr. Green ready. This surgery could take hours. One of the residents asked nervously. "Dr. Mitchell, do you want Dr. Parker on the team?" Mitchell looked at Parker for a long, cold moment. "No, he'll observe. That's all." Parker's face flushed with shame, but he didn't argue. He knew he deserved worse. At 2 a.m., the hospital lights glowed dimmer, but the operating room blazed with intensity. Maya was wheeled in, her body fragile yet still fighting. Jamal stood outside the double doors, his heart hammering against his ribs. Inside, the surgeons moved with precision. "Scalpel," Dr. Mitchell commanded. The cut was made. The room filled with the sharp smell of antiseptic, the clinking of instruments, and the steady hum of machines keeping Maya alive. Minutes stretched into hours. The surgeons worked tirelessly, their hands steady even as sweat dripped down their brows. The rupture was deep, the bleeding severe. Every move mattered. At one point, the monitors dipped dangerously, the beeps slowing. A nurse called out, "Pressure's dropping again." "Stay focused," Mitchell ordered. "We're not losing her. Not here, not now." Outside, Jamal paced like his life depended on each step. Angela stayed nearby, trying to calm him. "They're fighting for her. Believe me, no one's giving up." But Jamal's fists tightened. "If she dies in there, it's because someone didn't believe her when they should have. I won't forgive that." Hours later, their doors swung open. Dr. Mitchell emerged, peeling off her gloves, her face drawn with exhaustion. Jamal rushed forward. "Tell me she made it, please." Mitchell nodded slowly. "She's alive. The surgery was successful. We repaired the rupture and stopped the bleeding. But," she paused, her tone firm, "her recovery will be long. She's not out of danger yet." The next days would decide everything. Relief and fear collided in Jamal's chest. He nearly collapsed into a chair, his hands covering his face. "Thank you," he whispered, though his voice trembled with both gratitude and anger. As Maya was wheeled back into the ICU, Parker watched quietly from the hallway. He wanted to step forward, to apologize to Jamal, to admit his mistake, but the words stuck in his throat. Jamal caught his eye briefly, and the look he gave was sharp enough to cut through steel, pure fury. "You ignored her," Jamal said coldly, his voice low but strong. "You almost killed my sister." Parker's lips parted, but no words came. Jamal turned away, walking back into Maya's room. Inside, he sat once again by her side, holding her hand. "You're still here, sis," he whispered. "You fought through again. I'm not leaving until you wake up. I promise." The machines beeped steadily, but the tension in the air remained thick. Everyone, Jamal, the nurses, even the doctors, knew that the hardest part was not over. And while Maya's body lay fighting for survival, the truth about what had been ignored still lingered in the hospital halls, heavy and undeniable. The ICU lights were dim, but the machines never slept. Their steady beeping filled the room where Maya lay recovering from her second surgery. Jamal sat slouched in a chair by her bedside, his eyes heavy, but his grip on her hand firm. He hadn't closed his eyes in almost 2 days. A nurse entered quietly, checking the monitors. "She's stable for now," she said softly, adjusting the floor. "But she's weak. Her body's been through a lot." Jamal nodded, his voice hoarse. "She always pushes through. But I just wanted to open her eyes." The nurse gave a sympathetic smile before stepping out, leaving him alone with Maya again. Jamal leaned closer. "You remember when we were kids, Maya? You'd sneak me cookies when Mom said no. You always broke the rules for me. So break this rule too. Wake up when I don't expect you to." His words trembled, but somewhere inside him, he hoped she could hear. Meanwhile, in the staff conference room, Dr. Mitchell spread Maya's lab results across the table. Several doctors and nurses sat around her, including Dr. Parker, who avoided eye contact. Mitchell's tone was sharp. Her labs confirmed massive blood loss over days. The rupture didn't happen overnight. Signs were there: abdominal pain, nausea, weakness. If she'd been admitted and scanned earlier, we could have stopped this before it nearly killed her. One resident raised a hand. But Dr. Parker thought. Mitchell cut him off. He assumed. That's the problem. He dismissed her pain without proper testing. This is not just a medical mistake. It's negligence. All eyes shifted to Parker. His face burned, his throat dry. He tried to speak, but the words tangled. Finally, he muttered, "I was wrong." Mitchell's glare didn't soften. "You weren't just wrong. You were careless. And your carelessness almost cost a young woman her life." The room fell silent. Back in the ICU, Jamal dozed off briefly in the chair, only to jolt awake when Maya's hand twitched slightly in his. He shot up, leaning close. "Maya, can you hear me?" Her eyelids fluttered faintly, and for the first time since the surgeries, a weak whisper escaped her lips. "J. Jamal?" His heart leaped. Tears sprang to his eyes as he gripped her hand tighter. "Yes, it's me, sis. I'm here. You're okay. You made it." Maya's eyes opened just a sliver, her voice raspy. "It hurts. So much." Jamal wiped his eyes quickly. "I know, but you're safe now. They fixed you. Just rest. I won't let anyone ignore you again." Her eyes closed again, but that brief moment of life gave Jamal hope. He pressed the nurse call button, his voice trembling with excitement. "She's awake. She said my name." Within minutes, Dr. Mitchell and Angela entered. Mitchell leaned over Maya, checking her vitals while Angela adjusted the bed. "She's weak but responsive," Mitchell said. "That's a good sign." Jamal looked up at her. She said it still hurts. Why does it hurt this much if they fixed her? Mitchell's face was steady but serious. Because her body is recovering from a major trauma. Surgery fixed the rupture, but the damage from days of internal bleeding is still there. Healing will be painful and slow. Jamal nodded, though worry still gnawed at him. Later that morning, the hospital administrator arrived unexpectedly. A tall man in a suit. He stepped into the conference room where Mitchell and Parker sat reviewing charts. "I heard about the Johnson case," he said flatly. "What happened here?" Mitchell spoke firmly. "What happened is a young woman's pain was ignored, and she almost died because of it. That's what happened." The administrator's eyes narrowed. This could turn into a lawsuit. Or worse, press attention. "We can't afford that." Parker shifted uncomfortably, his guilt growing heavier by the second. Mitchell's voice sharpened. "Then maybe you should worry less about headlines and more about accountability. She's alive, but the damage is done. And if her family speaks out, you won't be able to bury this." The administrator frowned but said nothing, turning on his heel and leaving. Meanwhile, Jamal sat with Maya as she drifted in and out of sleep. Every time she stirred, he was there, whispering encouragement. Angela stopped by often, offering updates and small comforts. "You're doing good, Jamal," she said quietly. "She needs you more than anyone right now." He nodded, though the weight on his shoulders felt unbearable. "I just keep thinking. If she hadn't collapsed in the lobby, they would have sent her home. She could have died in her bed, and nobody would have known why." Angela lowered her gaze. "You're right. And it's not the first time something like this has happened. Patients, especially black patients, get ignored too often. Their pain isn't taken seriously. And when that happens, lives are put at risk." Jamal clenched his jaw. "Not anymore. Not with my sister." The next day, Maya was awake longer. Her voice was weak, but her eyes opened fully now. Jamal spooned small sips of water to her lips as she whispered, "You stayed with me?" "Of course," he said softly. "I'm not going anywhere." Maya glanced around the room, confusion flickering in her eyes. "Why? Why did they ignore me? I told them something was wrong." Jamal's throat tightened. He wanted to protect her, to shield her from the truth, but he couldn't lie because they didn't listen. But Dr. Mitchell is making sure they don't make that mistake again. Maya's lips trembled, a mix of exhaustion and anger in her expression. "I almost died." Jamal squeezed her hand. "But you didn't. You're here. You're still fighting." From the doorway, Parker watched silently, his chest heavy with shame. He wanted to walk in, to apologize, to tell Maya he had failed her. But Jamal's fiery eyes shot toward him, and Parker froze. The message was clear. Stay away. Parker turned and walked down the hallway, his footsteps echoing. But the weight of the truth followed him. He knew the story of Maya Johnson wasn't finished. Not for the hospital, not for him, and not for the people who would eventually hear what had really happened. And as Maya regained a little more strength each day, the tension inside those hospital walls grew thicker, pressing like a storm that everyone knew was coming. The hospital lobby was buzzing with noise the next morning. Families paced the floors, doctors rushed between rooms, and the smell of strong coffee drifted from the cafeteria. But inside Maya's ICU room, time moved slower. Jamal sat by her bed, holding her hand as she dozed. He rubbed his face, exhaustion painted across it. He hadn't left her side for more than a few minutes since she woke. Maya stirred, opening her eyes again. Her lips cracked into a weak smile. "You're still here?" Jamal chuckled softly. "Where else would I be?" Her smile faded, replaced by a flicker of worry. "Jamal, what really happened to me? Why was it so bad?" He hesitated. He had promised himself not to overwhelm her, but she deserved the truth. "Your appendix ruptured. It was leaking inside you for days. That's why you were in so much pain. They should have caught it early, but they didn't. Maya's eyes welled with tears. I told them I couldn't breathe. I told them something was wrong. Her voice broke. Jamal gripped her hand tighter. You did, and they ignored you. But you're here now. You survived. At that moment, the door opened and Dr. Mitchell walked in with a clipboard. She gave Maya a small smile. Good morning, Maya. How are you feeling today? Maya looked at her, pain still clouding her eyes. Like my body is on fire. Mitchell nodded. That's normal after what you've been through. But you're stronger than you think. Your vitals are improving, and that's what matters. Jamal's voice cut in, sharper than he intended. Stronger, yes, but this should have been caught before it nearly killed her. Somebody failed her. Mitchell met his eyes. You're right, and I promise, Jamal, this isn't being brushed under the rug. I'm reviewing every decision that was made. Unbeknownst to them, Angela the nurse stood just outside the room, overhearing everything. Her stomach twisted. She had watched too many patients, especially black patients, have their complaints dismissed. Maya wasn't the first. But maybe she could be the one who made people finally pay attention. Later that day, Parker sat alone in his office, staring at his computer screen without really seeing it. His hand shook slightly as he picked up his phone. After a long hesitation, he dialed a number. Linda, he said quietly when his wife answered. I made a mistake, a serious one. A patient almost died because of me. On the other end, his wife's voice was gentle. Come home, Robert. You've been carrying too much stress. Maybe it's time to step away. But Parker shook his head, even though she couldn't see him. It's not that simple. This could ruin me. It could ruin the hospital. His wife was silent for a moment, then said, or it could save the next person. If you admit what happened. The words cut deep. Meanwhile, in the cafeteria, Angela sat across from another nurse, whispering, We can't let this slide. If they ignore what happened to Maya, it'll just happen again. We need to speak up. Her friend looked nervous. But if we do, we could lose our jobs. You know how this place protects its own. Angela clenched her jaw. Maybe, but what's the point of saving lives in here if we stay quiet while people die from neglect? That evening, Jamal stepped into the hallway to stretch his legs when he overheard two doctors talking near the nurse's station. If the family sues, this hospital is in trouble. Parker's name is already being whispered all over. Administration's worried about bad press. Jamal froze, his fists clenched. He walked back into Maya's room, heart pounding. She was sleeping again, her face pale against the pillow. He leaned against the wall, thinking, they almost let her die, and now they're worried about their reputation more than her life. He took out his phone and started recording a video, speaking in a low but firm voice. My sister Maya Johnson was ignored when she came here in pain. She begged for help, but they didn't listen. She almost died because of it. People need to know the truth. He stopped the recording and stared at the screen. Should he post it? Should he go public? His hand trembled. If he did, it would blow everything open. But Maya was still so weak. He didn't want to put her in the middle of chaos yet. Later that night, Maya woke again, her voice faint but clear. Jamal? He rushed to her side. I'm here. Her lips trembled. Promise me something. Anything. Don't let them do this to anyone else. Not ever again. Jamal swallowed hard, his heart heavy. I promise. The next morning, Mitchell entered the room with more test results. Maya, your blood work is improving, but we're not out of the woods yet. Your kidneys took some damage from the infection. We'll have to monitor them closely. Maya's face tightened with fear. So, I'm not safe yet. Mitchell spoke gently but firmly. You're healing, but it will take time. You survived the worst part. After she left, Maya turned to Jamal. They keep talking about me like I'm a case file, like I'm just a problem on paper. But I'm a person, Jamal. Why don't they see that? Her words cut deep. Jamal leaned close, whispering, I see you. And soon, everyone else will too. In another part of the hospital, Parker finally gathered the courage to knock on Dr. Mitchell's office door. She looked up sharply as he entered. What do you want? She asked coldly. His voice shook. I need to admit it. I ignored her pain. I assumed instead of checking. If you want me to resign, I'll sign the papers. Mitchell's eyes narrowed. This isn't about saving your job, Parker. This is about saving patients. If you really want to make it right, you'll stand in front of that ethics board and tell them exactly what you just told me. Parker swallowed hard. His whole career flashed before his eyes, but so did Maya's pale, pained face. Finally, he nodded. I'll do it. Outside, the hospital continued its usual chaos. Patients arriving, alarms ringing, staff running. But in Maya's small ICU room, every second was thick with suspense. Her recovery, Jamal's growing determination, Mitchell's push for justice, Angela's quiet resolve, and Parker's battle with guilt, each piece was moving toward a collision. And when they finally came together, The entire hospital would feel the impact. The hospital lights hummed softly, the air heavy with the smell of antiseptic and coffee. Maya was sitting up in her bed for the first time in days, her thin frame wrapped in a pale blue gown. She looked fragile, but her eyes held fire. Jamal sat across from her, scrolling through his phone. He had replayed the video he recorded the night before at least a dozen times. Every time, the anger in his chest grew hotter. Jamal, Maya's voice broke his thoughts. He looked up quickly. You've been quiet all morning. What's going on in that head of yours? She asked, her tone soft but sharp, like she already knew. He sighed. I recorded a video. About what happened to you. About how they ignored you. I want the world to know, Maya. But I don't want to make things harder for you while you're still here. Her lips pressed into a thin line. You should post it. If I almost died because they didn't listen, imagine how many others didn't make it. This isn't just about me. Before Jamal could respond, the door opened. Angela, the nurse, stepped inside carrying a small tray of medication. She glanced between the siblings, sensing tension in the air. You okay in here? She asked. Maya nodded. Physically, I guess. Mentally? Not really. Angela placed the tray on the counter, then leaned closer. I've worked in this hospital for 7 years. I've seen too many patients brushed aside, especially people of color. I want to help you. But you need to know, if you push this, the hospital will fight back hard. They'll try to silence you. Jamal stood. Then we'll just be louder. Angela gave him a long look before whispering. If you do this, I'll back you up. I'll testify if I have to. You're not alone. The weight of her words filled the room. Jamal felt his chest tighten. For the first time, he realized this wasn't just about his sister anymore. It was about every voice that had gone unheard inside these walls. Meanwhile, Dr. Parker sat alone in the doctor's lounge, staring at a steaming cup of coffee. His colleagues whispered in the corners, avoiding his eyes. Word spread fast. He was a doctor who ignored a patient's pain, nearly killing her. He rubbed his temples. His phone buzzed with a message from his wife. Have courage. Do the right thing. But courage felt far away. Every step toward the truth felt like walking deeper into fire. Dr. Mitchell, on the other hand, was moving like a storm through the hospital halls. She stopped Parker in the hallway. You're coming to the ethics board tomorrow, she said flatly. He froze. Tomorrow? Yes, she said. If you want to prove you're more than your mistake, you'll face them and admit everything. If not, you'll lose more than just your job. You'll lose your humanity. Parker opened his mouth, but no words came. Mitchell walked away before he could respond. That evening, Jamal finally hit post. The video of his sister's ordeal went live on social media. Within an hour, the views climbed into the thousands. By morning, news outlets had picked it up. Headlines screamed, Woman's pain ignored in hospital. Family speaks out. Maya woke to the sound of her phone, buzzing nonstop. She scrolled through messages, strangers sending love, old friends checking in, others sharing their own horror stories. Her hands trembled. Jamal, people are actually listening. He nodded. They can't ignore this anymore. But downstairs in the administration wing, chaos was brewing. The hospital's chief administrator, Mr. Lawson, slammed a stack of papers onto the table during an emergency meeting. This story is everywhere, he barked. If we don't get control of the narrative, this hospital's reputation is finished. One of the board members whispered, What about Parker? Lawson scowled. If we sacrifice him, it might cool things down. But we can't let this turn into a war against the entire hospital staff. That could destroy us. Back upstairs, Angela entered Maya's room again, this time with urgency in her steps. They're already trying to spin the story, she warned. They're blaming Parker alone, like he's the only problem. But this isn't about one doctor. It's about the whole system. Maya looked at Jamal, her voice fierce despite her weakness. Then we tell the truth. All of it, not just about Parker. That night, Parker walked into Maya's room. Jamal stiffened, stepping protectively closer to his sister. What are you doing here? Jamal demanded. Parker's face was pale, his voice low. I came to apologize. To both of you. Maya's eyes narrowed. Apologize? Do you even know what it felt like? To be begging for help, while you looked at me like I was exaggerating? Do you? Parker's lips trembled. No, I don't. And that's my failure. I ignored what you were saying. I saw your race, your age, and I assumed. That assumption nearly cost you your life. I'll carry that shame forever. For a moment, the room was silent, except for the steady beep of Maya's monitor. Finally, Maya whispered, Then don't just apologize to me. Apologize to every patient who was ignored. Stand in front of the world and admit it. Parker's eyes filled with tears. He nodded. Tomorrow, at the board, I'll tell them everything. After he left, Jamal exhaled sharply. Do you believe him? Maya stared at the closed door. I don't know, but if he's serious, then maybe this is bigger than just us. The next morning, the hospital halls buzzed with tension. Reporters crowded outside, cameras flashing. Security tried to hold them back, but the story had grown too big to contain. Inside, the ethics board convened in a stark conference room. Doctors, nurses, and administrators filled the chairs. Parker sat at the end of the long table, hands trembling. Jamal and Maya, though Maya was still frail, had been invited to attend. She sat in a wheelchair, her blanket tucked around her, eyes blazing with quiet determination. The board chair cleared his throat. Dr. Parker, we're here to discuss your conduct in the treatment of Maya Johnson. Do you wish to speak? The room held its breath. Parker looked at Maya, then at the board. His chest rose and fell. Finally, he stood. I ignored her pain, he began. His voice cracked, but he didn't stop. I dismissed her words. I assumed instead of investigating. That decision nearly killed her. And she isn't the first patient this had happened to. A murmur spread across the room. Parker tightened his grip on the table edge. This hospital has a problem, he continued. It isn't just me. It's the way we minimize certain patients, the way bias creeps into our judgment. If we don't admit that, more lives will be lost. Maya watched him closely, her heart pounding. Jamal clenched his fists, hardly daring to breathe. The truth was finally breaking open. And outside that room, the entire hospital waited for fallout. The conference room was so quiet that every shuffle of paper, every click of a pen, echoed like thunder. The hospital's ethics board sat in a long row, their faces tight with unease. Dr. Parker stood trembling at the head of the table, having just admitted his failure. Maya sat in her wheelchair, wrapped in a blanket, her brother Jamal standing protectively beside her. Everyone waited for the next words. The board chair leaned forward. Dr. Parker, you say this is not an isolated case. Are you accusing this hospital of systemic negligence? Parker's throat bobbed as he swallowed. Yes, I am. Gasps spread through the room. Several doctors shifted uncomfortably. Mr. Lawson, the administrator, stiffened in his chair, his jaw tightening. This is outrageous, Lawson snapped. One mistake, one patient's case, and you're painting the whole institution as corrupt? That's dangerous and unfair. Before Parker could respond, a sharp voice cut through the air. It was Dr. Mitchell. No, Mr. Lawson. What's dangerous is pretending this doesn't exist. I've been saying for years that patients of color don't get the same level of attention. Maya Johnson almost died because of it. How many others haven't lived to sit here today? Maya felt her chest tighten. Her heart pounded as her eyes darted around the room. She could feel the weight of every stare pressing down on her. Then, a voice from the back spoke up, Angela, the nurse. She had come in quietly and now stood tall, her voice steady. I was there that night, she said. I watched Maya beg for help. I watched Dr. Parker dismiss her. And I've seen it happen before. She isn't the only one. The board erupted into murmurs. Jamal's fist clenched, his anger burning, but he stayed quiet. He wanted the truth to come out on its own weight. At that moment, the door opened again. A young resident entered, carrying a folder. Excuse me, she said nervously. I have Maya Johnson's final test results. They were completed early this morning. The board chair waved her forward. Bring them here. The folder landed on the table. The chair flipped it open, his eyes scanning the pages. His face went pale. He looked up at Maya, then at the rest of the room. These results, they show something extraordinary. The tension in the room was unbearable. Jamal stepped forward. What do they say? The chair cleared his throat. Maya was suffering from an advanced infection. It had spread dangerously close to her bloodstream. The pain she reported, severe abdominal cramps, dizziness, and fatigue, was not only real, it was a direct symptom of sepsis in its early stage. The room froze. A hush fell over everyone. Sepsis? One of the board members whispered. The chair nodded grimly. Yes, if this infection had not been treated when it was, she would not be alive right now. Maya gasped softly. Jamal's jaw tightened as he gripped the handles of her wheelchair. The chair looked at Dr. Parker. You ignored symptoms of sepsis. This could have killed her in less than 48 hours. That is the truth. Parker bowed his head, his eyes glistening. I know, and I can't take it back. Angela stepped forward again, her voice firm. This isn't just about Maya. If her pain had been taken seriously earlier, if she had been treated with urgency, her infection would never have spread this far. The neglect almost cost her life. The words hit the room like a hammer. Maya's chest heaved as she whispered. So all that time I was crying out, I was fighting death itself, and no one believed me. Jamal's voice cracked like thunder. She was dying in front of you, and you acted like she was exaggerating. If I hadn't pushed for more tests, my sister would be gone right now. Do you understand that? The board fell silent. No one dared to move. The chair finally spoke. These results make this case undeniable. Maya Johnson is alive today by the thinnest margin. This hospital ignored her pain, and we cannot ignore that fact any longer. The words reverberated around the room. Cameras outside the hospital lobby clicked and flashed as reporters caught wind of what was happening. The truth was about to spill beyond these walls. Lawson stood abruptly, his face red. We cannot let this turn into a public disaster. We need to control the story before it destroys everything we built. Jamal shot him a furious glare. You mean before it destroys your image, not before it destroys lives. Mitchell stood beside Maya's chair. This isn't about image anymore. It's about accountability. For the first time, Maya spoke clearly and firmly, her voice cutting through the air like a blade. You tried to silence me when I said I was in pain. You tried to make me doubt myself. But my test results are louder than all of your excuses. And now the whole world will know. Her words carried a weight that silenced even Lawson. The board chair finally stood. This hearing will be adjourned. But let it be known, Maya Johnson's case has revealed a critical failure in this hospital's duty to its patients. This will not be buried. As the meeting ended, Maya was wheeled out of the room. Reporters swarmed the hallway, microphones raised, cameras flashing. Jamal shielded her with his body as he guided the wheelchair forward. One reporter shouted, Maya, how does it feel knowing your pain was ignored? Maya paused, her eyes steady. It feels like I survived something I wasn't supposed to. And now, I want to make sure no one else has to beg to be believed. The crowd erupted in questions, but Jamal pushed her gently through, his heart pounding with pride. Back inside, Parker sat slumped in his chair. His career was shattered, but his conscience had finally spoken the truth. Angela approached him quietly. You can't undo what happened, she said, but you can fight to change what happens next. Parker nodded weakly. I will. I have to. Outside, the sky was bright with morning light. For the first time since this ordeal began, Maya felt the weight in her chest ease. She wasn't just a victim anymore. She was a voice, and her test results, once ignored, had become the undeniable proof that stunned the entire hospital, forcing the world to see what so many had tried to hide. If you like this story, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Also and other to strengthen our community. Let us know in the comments where you are watching from and what time you are currently watching this video.